Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get Out of Rap. Today, I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, all round legend, massive part of the team leader community, been a big supporter of Get Out of Rap, very well known in the CX and contact center world. I'm not going to lead with my favorite nickname for him, but today, I'm very pleased to be joined with a big announcement. Barry Cooper, head of conversions for Smart. I've forgotten it.
Smart currency exchange.
Smart. You can
You can
tell we're
edit that
recording
in,
this.
right?
You can tell we're recording this at the end of the day. Smart currency exchange. My good mate Barry, thanks for doing this and welcome.
Hey, Martin, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I'll start with it if you won't. Go on, we'll
Arr,
start with a pirate, right?
okay. My
We've got
favorite
the
nickname.
flag.
My favorite nickname for Barry is Popup Pirate. Should we share why?
Yeah, okay. So I guess why not, right? So the Pop-Up Pirate nickname comes from a year or so ago, I think, where
Maybe
you
even
put me in.
longer.
Yeah, maybe even longer. Actually, that leads on to it's 5 years now since I put a review on this podcast, that got us to become friends. There's a reason why I was looking at that, and I'll talk to you about it a little bit later. But yeah, so it's been 5 years now since we've got to know
Wow.
each other. I think maybe 3 years ago you put me on a crazy WhatsApp group to get fit. And as part of that crazy WhatsApp group, some of us were doing ice baths, and I went out and bought a wooden barrel. And if anybody remembers or is old enough like you and I are to remember the game Pop-Up Pirate, I put a picture on the WhatsApp group, and everyone just came back with the Pop-Up Pirate picture, and that's it. It kind of stuck. So, we're a Pop-Up Pirate, and we're happy as we can be.
I liked Barry was speaking at a conference once and I was hosting it and I I said to everyone as he was about to start, just by the way, you might want to ask him afterwards why his nickname's Pop Up Pirate. And as a true pro you are, it didn't phase you. You just sort of carried on.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it made me chuckle. I think it actually made me relax a little bit more before getting up behind that podium and doing that talk. I think, interestingly enough, I've been, talking about the community and how great the community is and what you've done and what you've achieved in it. The community got me that opportunity, from being part of the community, speaking at different events through yourself and through what the great work that you've done there, but also giving me the confidence. I think, I've been a head of for a while now. And if you know me personally, I'm chatty. I don't mind talking. I don't mind kind of doing it. But I think for a long time, I've always wanted to kind of get in front of the camera a little bit more, maybe do a little bit more video content, definitely stand up and speak a bit more. And I've always had a bit of a confidence piece around whether I'm the right person to stand up there. I think part of that might be my Welsh twang in the past. There's maybe kind of I don't sound as I sound. At least in my head, I don't sound as I sound. But the community gave me that opportunity to kind of one go on lives. The lives that you do in the community kind of, what I mean by lives is live videoing. Sorry for,
Mm.
for for the listeners who aren't maybe part of the community, but you do live videos on there, you do regular catch ups, and you sit with everyone on the community, and we all talk a little bit like this on this podcast today, right? And I think that kind of opportunity did it. I grew my network again in a different space. Again, in the 5 years that I've known you, my network grew. And being part of that community and being part of the CX space and the contact center space that we all work in helped me grow, right? Like it's helped me get even stronger and even more confident in those places. And I was able to get up and stand on that podium and take the asking why he's a pop-up pirate in my stride, but because of the things that we do as a community on the team leader community and in the contact center network that we've got. And I think it's hopefully a shining light for people in the contact center that just what you can do with the power of the network and the relationships that you build in that space, right?
Thank you, mate. I think we're both have the same viewpoint, which is, everyone has the ability and opportunity, doesn't always get the platforms and the chances just to practice and to show up and to be slightly edged out of your comfort zone. I think we can think of loads of examples from the team leader community of people who they have volunteered that they are introverted or shy, And even just posting or showing up on a live stream has felt uncomfortable at first, but quite a few of those people joined virtual conferences for the forum, have spoken at events for the very first time, spoken at expos and summits. And I think the reminder is that they know what they're talking about. You're talking about something you do day in, day out. It's on us as people with opportunities and platforms and senior leaders, let's say, to help people understand that they have got a voice and they are good, and to kind of help with that confidence thing. Because I certainly find it, I was going to say, I find it more interesting to hear from first time speakers. That said, there are some great speakers out there that are very experienced that I always learn from, but I think it's a nice mix to hear from them, but also people that haven't spoken for the first time. But yeah, really 5 years ago that we first started becoming mates. And isn't it funny how all of these things, they're communities within communities, and our industry is a welcoming one regardless. But then you kind of end up finding your people, I think.
Yeah, it's mad, right? And again, even that came out of stepping out of a comfort zone, right? Like I was in the car, I was head of customer or client services for in my last role, driving to Coventry. What do I listen to today? Find a business podcast. I'd listen to a couple of business podcasts. There's some, we could, I'm sure everyone can name great business podcasts that are out there. And I was looking for something a little bit different, because what was in the space that talked about the industry that I was in, which is a contact center, right? And I think a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a month or so ago, you did one of your LinkedIn lives where you talked about, should we be calling it a contact center? And there was some suggestions around you should call it actually something, the connecting home, or and everyone had come up for different names. We had center of excellences, we have all of these different names, but actually what's wrong with a contact center, right? Like it's not
Mm,
it's not
yeah.
a bad it's not a bad word, and we shouldn't treat it like it's a bad word. And I think I put the word contact center into podcasts, and Get Our Wrap popped up, and going back to my point, I guess, around the what stepping out my comfort zone, I wouldn't have normally left a review on a podcast. If I liked it, I've liked it. I might tell somebody about it, but I would never have gone back. But it was just really intrigued me that it was one podcast. Like I put the word contact center into Apple Podcasts, and one came back. And you think, well, how many contact centers are in the world? How many people are in those contact centers, big and small? So, contact centers that are 15, 20 FTE to contact centers that have 4,000 people in them across the world. And it was only one podcast. I thought, well, I've got to, like, if I'm part of this industry, which I am, I believe that wholeheartedly, I love, for over 22 years or so, I have to leave a comment on this. I have to get more people to listen to this podcast. And that wasn't because it was just contact center. The content that you were creating back then was great content. It was talking to operations managers, heads of, it was talking to team leaders, it was talking to people that had same experiences. And I go back to, this is I'm going to say it, only my second time on your podcast. So, I'm not
Is
saying
it
you've got
really?
yeah, I'm not saying you've
I
got
think
favorites or anything, but
I think because we talk near enough every day, I must have
yeah,
confused some with episodes.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have a lot to say if we do them too often. But I know you've got a couple that have been on more 4 or 5 times, right? But listening to those people, and nearly every one of them started in the same way. I found myself in a
Mm,
contact center with a telephony book and a phone, and I started dialing. Or I found myself in a contact center thinking, well, this will be a stopgap. And they've made careers out of it. And that was me, right? This
mm,
podcast was me. It was like, oh, yeah, that's me. I started in a contact center when I didn't really want to be there, or I didn't know what it was and what it could do for me in my career. And look at me now, I'm running a contact center, and I ran 2 or 3 contact centers, and it's all been great. And these people are, like you say, are my people. That it was the first kind of community thing that I'd probably seen, other than network building through LinkedIn,
mm,
right? But that didn't have the same feel. And then you went and created the team leader community, which is just like times 30 that vibe, right? Like that community that you've built in this podcast, and speaking to those people and finding my people through your podcast, there's now like over 700 and some odd in the team leader community that are all my people, and I have a space that I can go on and go, if I talk about this, you'll know what I mean. And I don't need to do it in a I don't have to worry about my terms, my terminology. Do I use average speed of answer? Do I use SLA? Do I use KPI? Like, I can just go on there and talk about having a difficult conversation with somebody because it's been difficult and I feel frustrated. And it's a really safe space to do that. And you humanized some of that in a bigger way. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It all come from that kind of me leaving that message and you saying who's Welshie 29 and well, that's me. And you were like, let's have a quick chat. And we had a quick chat and there we went, right? And I've been lucky enough to work in contact centers. I said it in my first podcast, with some amazing people. And it's always about people. I think,
Mm,
talking about some of those other people that do the speaking, I know last year you got maybe 6, 7 of us from the community that all had opportunities to speak at different events at different times in different places. You think of Gary, think of Danny. Most people will know these names that I'm talking about. Those are the guys that are doing the regular speaking, and they're amazing at it. What do they always talk about? Relationships, building relationships, and stories that we tell, and how we tell those stories, and how those stories connect us together. That's what contact center is. It's
oh, I
relationship
know.
and storytelling, right?
Oh, it's amazing. And talking of storytelling, something that I think is amazing is, from what I've heard, I think it's brilliant. And it's definitely, you've spotted a gap in what's out there at the moment, but you are on the verge of launching something very, very special. So, what is it you're going to be launching? What's it called? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I'd say I found a gap, because I think you and I talking every day and talking about what we do and how we do it is kind of where it came from. But what I want to do is, or what I am doing, not what I want to do.
Yeah,
I've
you
been
are
talking
doing it.
about, yeah, exactly that, right? What I am doing, because I've been talking about what I want to do for probably about 13 months. I've started to do is I'm going to be launching my own podcast.
Yay.
And that podcast's going to be called ASA, Average Speed of Answer. It's a Get Out of Rap production. I hope you don't mind me saying it's a Get Out of Rap production. So this is brought to you by Get Out of Rap Productions and Martin and Barry. And that's where I say I wouldn't say that I kind of spotted the gap. We were talking about it, and I think there's a gap there that we wanted to kind of fill, and we were trying to work out how we could do it. And you're a busy man with team leader community, Get Out of Rap. So I was like, well, how about I kind of do a sister podcast? I've got this idea for it. I pitched it to you. You were like, I absolutely love it. Let's get it done. And here we are launching it now. So yeah, a little bit about average speed of answer. What is it? So ASA then for me, it goes back to that piece about giving our people a voice. So I've already kind of mentioned that you talk to people of team lead level, you talk to people at senior management level, operations managers, you talk to business development managers, sales managers, right the way up to CEOs and directors of, and that's an amazing kind of pot of people to speak to get experiences from and to get knowledge from. Average speed of answer for me is about speaking to the people behind the headsets. And that's kind of what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to be doing podcasts. I've already recorded a couple with some colleagues and some colleagues that I've worked with in contact centers in the past. We're going to be talking to customer service advisors, sales advisors, business development managers that are, making those hard outbound cold call sales, warm cold call sales, and speaking to customers every day. So I'm going to hopefully be speaking to as many contact center or customer service advisors, as I say, people, and get their stories from the contact center world. So we're going to get it straight from the coal face, as they say. Let's use one of those business terminologies that we all love so much. But what I really wanted to do is, I mean, we talked about this yesterday when we caught up, right? We're having a bit of an update on where am I at with recording, where am I at with editing, what does launching look like? And we talk all of the time as managers, as senior managers and board, around the board, we need to give our people a voice. We need to make sure that we listen to our people. And I'm sure that every day of the week we do that. We do listen to our people. We do act on what they tell us. We do listen to what they need and what they want, and we support them in that space. But actually, wider than that, do they have a voice outside of the contact center? Do they go out and talk about the great things that the business is doing for you, or the things that they love about a contact center? Why are they there? Where do they think and see their career going? I think that was kind of what we felt maybe was needed. Somebody to speak to the people behind the headset. And that's what average speed of answer is going to be. It's going to be speaking to anybody that works in a contact center that takes or makes inbound, outbound calls, emails, live chats. If you are speaking to customers directly in any way and you want to join the podcast, jump on. We're here for you, right? We want to speak to you, and we want to hear your thoughts, views on the contact center industry and world.
I think it's you're a very humble guy, because this was 100% like your idea. You're like, look, there's been a couple of episodes, but this is 259, something like that. And there's been a couple of episodes where there's put together some snippets from chatting to agents, but you were very, very clear on we need to do something so we can hear from people that are actually doing the job. And let's be honest, all of the news, all of the updates, everything that's going on in the industry, it's predominantly agents, advisors, whatever you want to term people that are out there right now, talking to customers, chatting to customers, even in the support functions that are probably going to be going through the biggest period of change, that constant cycle or sort of challenge we have in the industry about how do we attract talent? How can we move on from the accidental career to a more kind of measured and thought through one, the one that's desired? Who better to speak to about that and hear from than agents? And what I thought was brilliant about it was, whenever in the period of my career when I was a senior leader, we'd often do employee engagement surveys, and it was always the comments, it was always the free text sections. You would quite quickly go past some of the scores and go, let's let's read what they're thinking and the words, and oh, what does this mean? And oh, look at this. Look, that was always, regardless of whether you were CFO or COO, people zoomed straight into them. And whatever level you're at within the industry, ASA, Average Speed of Answer podcast, is going to have something for you. So if you're an agent, you might want to hear what other agents are going through and what their experiences are, and you might want to be on the podcast. If you're a team leader, you can get to hear how you lead is impacting people and what's going on. If you're a senior leader, this is like getting the qualitative stuff from your employment engagement surveys every time there's a new episode. You're going to get to hear from people that we want to keep in the industry. So let's hear from them. Let's hear their stories. Let's hear how they got there. Let's hear how customers are behaving. Let's hear how they're interacting with technology. And I've been lucky enough with working with you and being your mate that I managed to. You gave me a sneak preview of the first episode, and I told you at the time, I said, I think this is brilliant. It's slightly annoying that if you compare it to the very first time I did an episode, you are miles ahead already. So it was great. And to be honest, I think the Welsh accent helps. I really do.
Thanks, mate.
But no,
Appreciate that.
genuinely, it's really, really good. And I know you're very keen to make this accessible and open to anyone that wants to come on. So if you're listening, you can contact Barry, and Barry will share his contact details, but you can go through me and I will send you over to Barry as well. Let's get as many people on the podcast as possible. And it's going to be a resource, right? It's going to be a resource for people to share within their contact center. How did you find the first sort of episodes that you've already got in the can?
So I guess again, like, start with thank you. The reason I'm further ahead is because again, as a mentor, you have been so supportive in this, right? Like you've trailblazed the way in how to do this podcast and how to speak to people, and the skill sets that I've learned over the years from a contact center, how to speak to a customer, how to ask an open question, how to listen, how to really hear what's being said, and then maybe how to follow up on that. All of those skills that I've learned in my career, and then people like you and the rest of our network have helped me get the podcast to where it is from day one, which is, if I had started 7, 8 years ago like you did, I'd probably wouldn't have been as far on or as I would be. But so thank you, and thank you for the network support. I will say, just before I kind of go into the first couple, I don't want to. I will have the odd senior manager on, right? Like I'm not adverse to. I'm not going to say no to anybody that wants to come onto the podcast. I definitely want team leaders on there. So I want team leaders. They pick up calls. They still making telephone calls every day. I want them to talk about what it was like from going from a customer service advisor or an agent to a team leader, because there's a gap there that we always talk about. We talk about this a lot in the team leader community, right? That magic weekend on a Friday, you get promoted to a team leader, and on a Monday, you take off your stabilizers and you try and ride the bike in a straight line. And I think you're doing amazing work to fill that space. I think for me, I want to speak to those people too, but we will start in places where, and this leads into the couple of first podcasts, we'll start in, what was your first day like in the contact center? How was it? Like, what did you feel? What was it scary? Was it not scary? We'll talk about what the training was like, what the onboarding was like. We'll talk about things like, how did you feel when you had to take that first call? And interestingly, in the first couple, most of them have all gone, I don't actually remember how I felt on that first call. But you can see, like all of us, going back to finding that dendrite, that thing in your mind, that the smell of your mum making bread, or the smell of the flowers in the house that make you remember it. They kind of go back and go, oh, actually, I do. I was really nervous. I've had one person who said to me, I had a great onboarding experience, 2 weeks worth of training. The training was brilliant. I had side-by-side call listening. I had coaching and training beforehand. I went to take my first call. I messed up GDPR. I didn't ask the right questions at the start of the call. And by the end of the call, I was a shaking, nervous wreck. But by the end of the day, they were great. And you go, well, that's great, because that's the truth of what a contact center is, right? I was exactly the same. When I joined the energy company that I joined as a customer service advisor, you could have taught me everything you wanted, but I'd never answered a telephone with a headset on and
Yeah.
said hello. I don't know what. Like, somebody said to me, right, you need to work on your salutation. I'm like, what's a salutation? Like, what is that? Like, what do you mean? Like, what's one of them? I say hello, right? And they're like, oh, no. Thanks for calling today. You're through to, oh, okay, cool. Now I find I still answer my mobile phone saying, thanks for calling Smart Currency Exchange. You're through to Barry. How can I help? And it's like, okay, well, that's stuck 30 years or 25 years. So the first ones have been really, really interesting, just to kind of get that storytelling piece out. We talk a little bit about KPIs. We talk about measures. The other thing we've talked about in the industry over the last 2 or 3 years is that we're still measured in ways and means of every minute of every day. Maybe we talk about AHT still. We still talk about average speed of answer, getting out a wrap, right? Nudge, nudge. Obviously going to get those two in there. But we talk about that. What does that actually feel like? And what does that actually mean to you? And how do you manage that? And we also talk about things like, how do you cope with a day where you've got call after call, you're taking in the morning 60 inbound calls, and there is no room for wrap, or you've had a little bit of wrap between each one, but you're taking it. And then on top of that, you can see your email mailbox growing a little bit bigger. And maybe you've got this in your task box. I don't know if you've got a task list to work, or how that works in terms of, you doing inbound and outbound, or you doing chat at the same time. We kind of talk about what does that feel like? And how do you work through that? And then we talk through those types of things, right? Like, what's good about the contact center? What's your best customer experience? What's your worst customer experience? And then I've talked a little bit in the ones that I've done about, and what have you learned and taken into your new role? So I have spoken to 2 people out of the sort of 4 or 5 that I've done so far, that went from customer service advisors to team leaders. And we talked about, well, what did you learn in that customer service advisor role that you did actually on that magic week, and on Monday went, well, I know that, I'm good at that. And how did that help you? And how did that make you feel? And then we talk a little bit about the future. What's your aspirations? Where do you want to go? And where could that lead to? So yeah, we talk about everything from start to finish and everything in between,
I love that there's some
I guess.
even just
They've been
hearing that
interesting and fun.
list. Oh, I'm yeah, just from a taster that came across, but from that list of things that you were going through, even that is just a prompt, a reminder that I think sometimes you can overlook, especially the more senior you get, that there is a culture shock for most people that join, in as much as everything's being measured. Yes, there are probably more centers now that are far more relaxed and give people a bit more kudos and freedom around how they're showing up and when. And but certainly I think the vast majority is still hot on, here's when you're in, here's when you start, here's your next break, here's your lunch. And I know, both personally but then managing agents, that was a culture shock for many, and hadn't even really considered it, and probably didn't handle it as I would handle it now. And but again, you asked the question, can you remember your first customer? I did what I imagine everyone listening to this is going to do, which is go back to that point and go, yeah, that was exciting. Actually, I couldn't wait for the first one to come through. But then I completely bungled it. But who does anything for the first time seamlessly? And that kind of, but going through that, I think there's going to be so many unexpected benefits from listening. Where maybe it'll prompt people to think about how they onboard, what they do with inductions, um, and prompting better questions, I guess, in employee surveys and things like that. Rather than that, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well supported do you feel? That has its place, but let's actually talk to people. So yeah, really, really, really looking forward to it.
So interestingly, right, when you're talking about your first day in the contact center there, Martin, like a lot of people, or every time I've spoken to somebody about it, the people I've spoken to, they can't give me the detail of the call. They can't really remember what happened on the call. They don't remember Mrs. Jones. They don't remember the date and time that she called. They don't know why she called. And they know that maybe they bumbled it a little bit, like you said, right? Like because who gets it right first time? But when everybody thinks about that call, or when I ask them that question, what they've all done is kind of go, oh yeah, my first call, what was that like? And they try and remember the instance, and I can't remember my first call, but I remember how I felt. I remember feeling the nervous wreck. I remember bumbling the call and being, kind of, but I also remember laughing about it, and I remember the enjoyment out of it. And that interestingly goes into your employee experience piece, right? Where you talk about on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? Well, it's not actually the 1 to 10 that we really care about, is it? Well, it is, because it's on a gradient scale. But what I care about is the feel. And that's hopefully what we're going to get out of the podcast, right? We all love contact centers. We all love the industry. I love what I do. I love working with people. I love seeing people have tough days, but I love them seeing have winning days, where days are great and days aren't so busy and we haven't got call after call, or we're not talking about what are we measuring next. But again, to your point, right? Like, we're an inbound, outbound industry. I do have to have scheduled breaks. I do have to have a start time. I do have to have a stop time, because my customers are expecting me to be there in the times that they
Mm,
need that they need us. So we do have to have some structure in there, and we do have to measure those key performance indicators, and we need to make sure we're performing well as a business. Otherwise, we won't have a business, and our customers won't have us to be there for them. But for me, it's about the feeling. It's about, like, how does it make you feel? What do you learn from it? Going right back to the start of this podcast, where we were talking about building relationships, building connections, and telling stories. That's what I'm hoping Average Speed of Answer is going to be. It's going to be an opportunity for the people behind the headsets, the people that are in this moment talking to customers in some way, team leaders that are, engaging with customers every day in this kind of environment. I want to hear their stories. I want to hear how they feel. I want to hear what they're doing. And I just want to be able to give them that voice outside of their business, because I know every one of them comes in every day to do amazing things. They achieve amazing things every day. And that might be shared in the business, which is phenomenal. But actually, we should be sharing that with the rest of the world, so that people can see just what the industry is about. And to your point again earlier on, it becomes about a place to go and work for a career rather than a place that I found myself. Because that's exactly what we are. We're a place to come and work, a place to grow, a place to connect with people and meet people, build long-lasting relationships like you and I have, and our network between us have. And that's what I want to hear. I want to hear those things, and that's what the podcast is hopefully gonna do for us.
Well, it's going to be brilliant. When is it launching?
Yeah, thanks, mate. I'm looking to do the first one on the 22nd of April. So watch this space. First podcast will be released on the 22nd of April, and then they will be every Wednesday thereafter. And yeah, hopefully you'll listen in. You'll put your headset on maybe, or you'll watch the video, because again, these will be videos a little bit like yours. So we'll be putting them up. We'll be putting them on most of the platforms that you can get your normal podcast at. Join us. Reach out, feedback on the podcast, tell me whether they're good, tell me what you want me to ask. If you want me to ask certain questions for these people, if you've got questions that you want me to kind of pull out, I'm happy to ask any questions and go over what we want to hear and what we want to do. This is the podcast for everyone. Yeah, tune in, listen up, give me some feedback, and hope you enjoy it. Average Speed of Answer coming to you on the 22nd of April 2026, brought to you by Get Out of Rap Productions.
And make sure you leave a review, because you might form a lovely friendship from it. Thank you, Barry Cooper, master of all things CX and contact centers, and now podcaster as well. So, Barry, well done, mate. Can't wait to see this thing fly. I know how much work you've put into it, and thanks for coming on for chatting about it. And I'll have to make sure you come on like 5 more times so you could
Yeah.
feel like.
I think, look, I don't mind not coming on as much as
Oh, shut up.
everyone else, but I appreciate you having me on. I really appreciate the support that you've given me. I appreciate more what you do for the industry as a whole, and I think, from everybody, thank you. I think that the great way to end this one is exactly like you said, right? Leave a comment on the podcast and watch a relationship build and
Exactly.
bloom,
Yeah.
and do exactly that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, mate.
Take care.